Hello and welcome to the Goonie Talk, back again with you guys for another show. Back for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, show in which we look at the players that are being linked to the Arsenal and could possibly be seen joining the Gunners this summer, autumn, or maybe even winter, depending on when the transfer window actually ends up opening. And today's show is no different as we cover the Lyon Dutch forward Memphis Depay, who currently resides in France, as I've mentioned, and someone that has already seen his fair share of Premier League football. We're going to come into all that in just a second, but before we do, if you're enjoying these series, please make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. Hope you're staying well, hope you're staying safe in the current lockdown situation wherever you are in the world, and apologies for the lack of content in the last few days because it's been hectic with current work and other things that have been going on, because believe it or not, I am still mad busy with stuff except from the channel. But we are back today with another show about Memphis Depay, and we're going to kick things off with a United perspective because of course Memphis Depay spent time in England with Manchester United, so I'm very happy to be joined by Mr. Mark Goldbridge from the United Stand, who's going to tell you all of his thoughts on the Dutch forward.
Hello, Mark Goldbridge from the United Stand, talking Memphis Depay. Links that he's got to Arsenal, a year left on his contract, £30 million. Apparently United have actually got a first refusal on him, which is interesting. He's a player that a lot of United fans would like to see back at United. I don't. I'm not a big fan of going back once you've gone. I know we did it with Pogba, but I think with Memphis Depay, United came too soon for him. He was a very talented player at PSV, and then at Manchester United, it just didn't work out. He's got an ego. I don't think that's a problem in football. You know, he likes his cars, he likes his clothes, but I think the ego was too big for the talent at United. And bringing him back, it just would be added pressure. And, you know, I think the press, the way it works in this country, they'll be on his back. I think they'll be on his back a little bit if he went to Arsenal as well, because they'd almost want him to fail, because that's how our press can be at times. Would he be a good player for Arsenal? Yeah, I think he would. He's still, you know, is he mid-20s? He's had a bad injury. I think that's got to be taken into account. But I think he would be a good player for Arsenal. And there's no doubt that he's better than the French league. So if I was an Arsenal fan looking at Memphis Depay, I think you've got to look at, do you want an ex-United player? I wouldn't. That really, to me, would be quite petty, because I think he's a player that can improve you. There's always going to be a question mark about Memphis. Can he do it in a big European league? And I think the Premier League is a league that he should come back and revisit. Definitely a driven individual. I think some people think he's a bit of a big-time Charlie. I think he is a driven individual when you look at his background, as I did when he came to United. It just didn't work out. And I think when it doesn't work out, he sort of lost his way at United. And Van Gaal was a bit of a disciplinarian. So I think it could be a good deal for Arsenal if they went for it. I wouldn't have him back at United, like I said, because I just don't believe that going back would help either the player or the club. But I would like to see him do well, and I think that he could be a decent fit for Arsenal. Do I think you'll get him? No, I don't think you're going to have a lot of money to spend, to be honest, and I don't necessarily think we will.
So there you go. Big thanks to Mark for helping us out with that. Let us know what you think about Mark's comments in the comments section below. Do you think it's time, or should you ever give another chance to a player that's already been given his go at the Premier League? Can he come back stronger? Well, to get more of an insight in terms of the French perspective, Mr. Jeremy Smith of French Football Weekly, at Jeremy Smith 8 on Twitter, you can find him there. He is going to tell us all about what the Dutchman has been up to since leaving England and residing in France with Lyon. So take it away, Jeremy.
It's hard to believe that Memphis Depay has only recently, in February, turned 26, because it feels like his name has been sort of around as one of these big European talents for so long now. But actually, looking at his age, he's only now really starting to reach his peak. And his form this season, until he suffered an ACL injury, was kind of indicating that. So were Arsenal to make a move for him now, I think probably this would be a really good time. I think he's reaching, as I said, sort of peak ability, but also peak maturity, which I think is important and possibly the thing that's held him back until now. He joined Lyon after a pretty disappointing time in Manchester with Man United. Obviously, you can debate whether that's because of Mourinho or him or a little bit of both. Since he joined Lyon, the first couple of years, it was quite clear that he very much saw the club as a kind of stepping stone. There are even quotes from him sort of saying, you know, I'm good enough to play for one of the big 5 teams in Europe. And it felt like he wasn't entirely invested. Although at the end of his first full season, I think he scored 10 goals in his last 9 games to really help Lyon to qualify for Europe. And it showed that when he wants to, he can be a real match winner. But at that time, it was a little bit sort of too. It wasn't consistent enough, and it felt like his mind was elsewhere. But and it didn't help that he was kind of, in a way, he's a victim of his own ability, because he was kind of played a little bit everywhere. Sometimes centre forward, sometimes deeper striker, almost a number 10, put on the right wing, the left wing, could play a little bit everywhere. And often the first couple of seasons playing second fiddle either to Lacazette or to Fekir. But certainly this season, I feel like he's really gone up another level. He's now the main man. He was made the captain, and I think he's really sort of taken on the responsibility. Lyon obviously haven't had a great season, but he was the one player who really began to take games by the scruff of the neck, showing better judgment. In the past, he's been very selfish, but now much more good decision making in terms of when to give the ball, to bring teammates into the game, still scoring important goals. He'd done that previously. There's notable late winners against PSG and Marseille, for example. But you look at his record this year, I think it's 5 in 5 games in the Champions League, 6 in 6 games for Holland in the European Championship qualifiers. I think 9 goals in 12 Ligue 1 matches, and that's for a Lyon team that really wasn't functioning well. Even sort of off the pitch, he's shown more investment. When his teammate Marcelo was being abused by Lyon fans, he's the one that went out to defend his teammate and to sort of argue with the fans. So I think there's been a huge leap in terms of maturity, in terms of consistency, possibly finding his best position, which may be sort of starting on the left flank and sort of drifting in. He scored 2 or 3 very important goals. I remember a couple, one against my team Metz and one against Toulouse, where they're late winners, where he took the ball on the left flank, cut inside and finished well. So he's starting to really show consistently all the promise that we knew he had. The question is, does he move this summer? I think he was very much sort of banking on having a great European Championships to really put himself in the window. His injury put paid to that, but obviously in a way it sort of works to his advantage that the championships have been postponed for a year. The issue that brings up is, can anyone afford him? But then on the other side, Lyon now haven't qualified for Europe, so there may be a deal to be done there. I'm sure he wants to play in Europe next season, and possibly Lyon might need to sell in order to kind of brings through some other players to get them back into Europe for next season. So maybe a lot depends as well on whether Arsenal qualify for Europe. But certainly whoever gets Depay, if he leaves, if he can carry on the form of this season, both on and off the pitch, then I think he now finally is ready to sort of show that he is one of Europe's best footballers.
Big thank you to Jeremy there for giving us all of the possible insight about how Memphis has been dealing with the situation in France and what it could mean for a move to Arsenal. Let us know what you think of Jeremy's thoughts in the comments section below. But now we move on to the third and final section of today's show, which is of course the statistical analysis of the Dutchman. So let's throw straight into our trusty heat map to find out where this guy plays. So you can see on the heat map there that even though he plays as more of a central figure at Lyon here and there, as well around obviously Dembele, he does switch to that left-hand flank more. He's a right-footed player, but he likes playing in an inverted style, finessing those shots far right or to the near post of the keeper, and that leaves him onto that left-hand side. So if we were to say sell one of Lacazette or Aubameyang, which is looking all the more likely this summer, you could see the Dutchman possibly playing in a wide berth with one of those two that remain at the club, if they both do stay, playing in a central role with Depay playing left. Now you could say that could hinder the prospect of seeing Saka or Martinelli developing in that role maybe, but maybe they're destined for other positions. But also there's the chance to see Depay play more centrally. If we look at now his attacking statistics, 14 goals and 2 assists so far in a Lyon shirt this season. Of course, he has suffered a big ACL injury, and that's the reason why maybe he hasn't scored more. Averaging just under 4 shots per game. So the fact that he's scoring 14 goals this season, he's only taking 4 shots. That leads to a 48.4% shot accuracy on target statistic, which is pretty good for a person that played most of their career on the wing, has now been converted to more of a central role. But the fact that he's still playing out wide a fair amount and getting that high statistic value on target is very, very strong. 1.5 crosses, will come on to more of that in the passing stats, but dribbles 7 of those being made each game with a 53.8% success rate. That's fairly decent. A player in the French league, a very physical league, sustaining plenty of challenges, and we'll talk about that with the foul stuffing in just a moment, but that's a decent amount of success in the amount of dribbles that he's doing. 15.84 offensive duels, with 40% of those being won, is also pretty good. Touching the penalty box, he likes to play in there. He's a poacher. He loves being in the box when he can be, as well as dribbling into it too, and 3.66 is no surprise. Progressive runs 1.68 and 1.56 fouls suffered show that this guy loves to be on the ball, and he draws plenty of fouls around the box. So if you've got the free kick talent that Arsenal have currently got at the club, that's certainly something that we could definitely utilise. Moving then on to his passing statistics. 35 passes being made in each go, a 76.7% success rate. He's a forward player who likes to be a little bit more adventurous, and that leads to a lower success rate than maybe for a midfielder or a defender, certainly. Long passes 1.86 with a 58.1% success rate is also pretty strong for a forward player. Usually we see them below 1, and that accuracy is definitely in the 30s, but to see it at 58 is very good. Through passes 1.62, 14.8% success rate is not very high, and that's leading to him not taking too many of those in each game. Crosses 1.5, as we say, he likes to switch that left-hand flank, and right-footed players playing on the left-hand side typically see lower crosses and therefore lower success rate with those too, and that's no different for Depay. He's not someone who puts the crosses in, it's just not part of his game. Passed into the final third though, 3.9, nearly 4 of those being made with a 60% success rate is very good. Passed in the penalty area, each one that he makes nearly 50%, so 1 in every 2 of those is typically going on target to the player that he wants to find. Very decent. Maybe I'd like to see that a little bit higher though. 25 passes received in each game on average leads to him being a very, very well utilised player on the pitch. Forward passes to backward passes for a striker, we typically see it at a very 50-50 ratio, and that is exactly what you can see here. Moving then on to the defensive statistics, important to see what these guys up the top of the pitch do going backwards. 2.58 defensive duels being made, and 58.1% of those are being won is actually pretty strong for a forward player. Aerial duels is not the tallest, but he's still winning 20% of those that he gets up for. 1 in 5. Pretty typical for a player of his height. Loose ball duels, 40% of those being won, which is pretty good. We'd like to see players that go in for those, and seeing the fact that he goes in for over 3 of them in each game shows that he does not shy away from a challenge when he can get involved with them. Nearly 1 interception being made in each match is decent. Losses in his own half compared to recoveries. I mean, he's a forward player, and I feel like I am, yes, probably making quite a lot of excuses for him, but 12.66 is quite high, but he's a forward. He takes risks, he tries to make things happen, and that is going to lead to a few losses. The recoveries, though, I would like to see that statistic a bit higher, 2.64 of those being made, and when you're losing the ball that often, I'd like to see him maybe graft a bit harder to get those recoveries a bit higher. Fouls and clearances are low, and yellow and red cards, he's not received any so far this season, which is strong. So there you go, everything that you could possibly want regarding Memphis Depay. Please let me know what you think of the Dutchman. With a year left on his deal, a 30 million price tag on the table, is he someone that you think Arsenal should be pushing for, or are there priorities elsewhere on the pitch that Arsenal should be focusing on? Really interested to get your thoughts. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like on the video. Please go follow the guys who've helped out and contributed to the video. You can find their information in the description below. But make sure you subscribe to the channel to get more and more content as we try and work our way through these very difficult times. Please make sure you keep yourself safe, stay well, stay healthy, stay inside, and do all the relevant things that you need to be doing. See you very, very soon, and as always, up the Arsenal.